For decades, reports have surfaced alleging that the US government has been involved in dumping toxic waste near wildlife habitats. Controversy surrounds whether these actions are intentional, accidental, or the result of regulatory loopholes. Some of the most ecologically sensitive regions in the country have suffered from exposure to hazardous chemicals. Investigations have uncovered alarming evidence of contamination in national parks, wetlands, and protected areas. Whistleblowers have claimed that government agencies have knowingly disposed of industrial waste in environmentally sensitive locations. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has been criticized for failing to prevent some of these incidents. Toxic chemicals such as heavy metals, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, and radioactive materials have been found in affected areas. Wildlife populations near these sites have experienced devastating consequences, including birth defects and population decline. In some cases, entire ecosystems have been disrupted due to exposure to harmful substances. Investigative journalists have documented numerous cases where federal agencies ignored warnings about potential contamination. Some of the worst offenders have been military bases and energy facilities with lax waste disposal policies. Groundwater contamination has been a major issue linked to these toxic dumping sites. Aquatic life in rivers and lakes near waste disposal sites has suffered mass die-offs due to high toxicity levels. Some of the chemicals dumped have half-lives spanning decades, meaning their effects will persist for generations. The presence of carcinogenic compounds in soil samples has raised concerns about long-term human health impacts. Conservationists have called for stricter oversight and enforcement of environmental protection laws. Certain states have launched their own independent investigations into toxic dumping incidents. The federal government has paid out millions in settlements to communities affected by toxic waste exposure. Indigenous tribes have been disproportionately impacted by government-sanctioned waste disposal near their lands. Some of the worst pollution cases have been linked to Cold War-era waste disposal practices. The Department of Defense has faced multiple lawsuits for failing to clean up contaminated military training sites. Wildlife experts warn that toxic exposure can lead to the collapse of fragile food chains. Scientists have documented severe genetic mutations in fish and amphibians living near waste disposal sites. Some toxic dumping grounds have been abandoned, leaving local communities to deal with the aftermath. The cleanup process for toxic waste sites can take decades and cost billions of dollars. Critics argue that the government prioritizes corporate interests over environmental protection. Government agencies have been accused of covering up the true extent of contamination in certain areas. Investigative reports suggest that some hazardous waste sites were deliberately left off official records. Residents near contaminated sites have reported higher than normal cancer rates and respiratory illnesses. The military has been one of the largest contributors to toxic waste pollution in the United States. Some Superfund sites, designated for cleanup, have remained hazardous for years due to bureaucratic delays. Local activists have demanded greater transparency regarding the government's role in waste disposal. Satellite imagery has revealed evidence of waste dumping in remote locations far from public scrutiny. The discovery of toxic waste near wildlife refuges has sparked outrage among environmental groups. Some politicians have proposed legislation to increase penalties for illegal waste disposal. The ongoing destruction of natural habitats due to pollution has irreversible consequences for biodiversity. Reports indicate that toxic runoff from industrial sites has entered major U.S. water sources. The Clean Water Act was meant to prevent such incidents, but enforcement has been inconsistent. Some former government employees have revealed that internal warnings about pollution were ignored. High levels of lead and mercury have been found in animals living near contaminated sites. The long-term economic impact of toxic waste dumping includes reduced property values and costly medical expenses. In some cases, entire species have been driven to the brink of extinction due to toxic exposure. Wildlife sanctuaries, once thought to be pristine, have been found to contain alarming levels of contamination. Government-funded studies on pollution levels have sometimes been suppressed or altered to minimize public concern. Toxic dumping is not limited to land. Some of the waste has been found in oceanic ecosystems as well. Environmental lawyers have taken on major lawsuits against government agencies responsible for pollution. Advocacy groups have called for stronger whistleblower protections to expose illegal dumping practices. The risk of bioaccumulation means that toxic chemicals build up in the food chain, affecting predators at the top. Many of the affected habitats are home to endangered species that are already struggling to survive. Public outrage has pushed some officials to take action, but progress remains slow. In some regions, farmers have reported crop failures due to soil contamination linked to waste disposal. The government's role in toxic waste management remains a deeply controversial issue. Wildlife tourism in affected areas has plummeted as reports of pollution surface. Environmentalists argue that weak regulations allow government agencies to escape accountability. The sheer volume of waste generated by military and industrial operations makes proper disposal a challenge. Some scientists believe that new technological advancements could help mitigate some of the damage. The long-term health effects on humans exposed to contamination remain a major area of concern. Community-led initiatives have attempted to restore polluted areas with varying degrees of success. Toxic chemicals released into the environment can travel long distances, affecting areas far from the original dumping site. Exposure to certain pollutants has been linked to neurological disorders in both humans and animals. Some activists have likened government-sanctioned pollution to an environmental crisis on the scale of climate change. Without stricter regulations, the pattern of toxic waste dumping near wildlife habitats may continue. The public has demanded greater accountability from both government agencies and corporations involved in pollution. As new revelations emerge, the question remains, will the US government take real action to address its toxic legacy?